Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the RationalInvestor.com Broiler Chicken Show. Trade your trading plans. Don't take too much risk on any one trade, and just let yourself get rich. Hello, everyone. All five of us. Hey, look at that. We got a couple more people. Anyway, welcome to the weekend show, our Broiler Chicken Show. Brian's looking all spiffy, ready for Liam. Pretty bizarre weekend, but doing a whole bunch of sort of personal finance housekeeping this weekend, so it's not really paying too close attention to the market. But nonetheless, here we are, back in the saddle. I suppose we'll give you an hour and a half or so. Hopefully, try and give it in that time limit. Usually they stretch on to about 2.5 hours though. But maybe a brief overview of what we see happening in the market, and maybe give you some food for thought, and maybe you might even just learn something here through these sessions. Good part about it is they're free. So it's certainly not like you're having to pay a hell of a lot for this information. Unfortunately, though, I will say there is a certain part of this that if you do these videos for free, people only value the information based on how much they actually have to pay for the information. So it's kind of a damned if you do, damned if you don't. If anything, I'm super excited. The algos, that is basically my life's work, what you see on the screen here. The individual names, and then the juxtaposition of all of those technical readings, 45 different technical readings on any one particular asset at any given point in time, and then combining all of those reasons together to give you an idea of sort of what's called the breadth of the market, or how much of the market is moving up, how much of the market is moving down, and then trading off of those sort of like the rising tide, the falling tide signals. It's working very, very well. I think on balance, ironically enough, it's actually trading even better than my manual trading. So go figure. Especially with guys like BlackRock and stuff coming into the market and pushing price around. Keep in mind that guy, he probably just goes to his trading desk and says, all right, here's 1,000 Bitcoin. See how many stops you can go and run. And, you know, if I had a treasury of like 1,000 Bitcoins, I could push price around all over the place, just make tons of money. You know, while we go through sideways markets, you accumulate. And then all it takes is, you know, like something like here, you could, every time the market looks a bit weak, you just step in and buy like 1/10 of a Bitcoin or something like that. Just prop it up. And then as soon as you're ready, you just jack in like 5 or 6 Bitcoin market orders. And you could launch this market up like a good $1,000 and then blow out 50 Bitcoins up top here. And it's just a nice little day's work. You were the one manipulating the price up. You ran all these stops up top. And because it was you who was running the price, you just walk away from the bid and the price just instantly collapses. So, and you go and buy all the Bitcoins that you sold up top back. So I hate to say it, but I really think that's what's going on in this market. This is a really, really dangerous market state for new people to quote unquote trading. I don't know whether a lot of people that are in this space actually quote unquote trade, or do they just sort of, you know, hodl, buy, and oh, please God, I hope it goes up. But anyway, so my comments this past week were all about you get an FU, you get an FU, everybody gets an FU. I don't know if anybody even remembers that, but I think that this is all because of this cloud. Oh boy, that sure is loud. Yeah, look at this. I'm Mr. Big Shot, and I'm going to be louder than Sting. Anyway, so I'm sure everybody is familiar with Mr. Fink's prattlings on there. And frankly speaking, I think this was obviously the biggest driver of Bitcoin price here over the past, even I would even say past few weeks. Because before I went on vacation, market was slowly trending lower, just doing its regular seasonal trade, and then like literally as soon as I go on vacation, this whole BlackRock ETF crap just comes out of nowhere, and the whole damn market pops higher. So, that's the type of market state that we're in. Actually, this is probably a good chart to look at, right? I mean, like literally, there was the BlackRock ETF announcement, and then, of course, the rejection. And then, ironically enough, since that event, all they've done is just wash the market back and forth, back and forth. And I even suggested that I was expecting I had drawn on here just really tertiarily megaphone sort of chart pattern price action. And I even said like how many stop washes are we going to have to endure here through this really weird market state. And unfortunately, in my talk, some people go, okay, that's fine and all, Brian. Can you now tell us in English what the hell you just said there? Said that was funny. I know I'm a bit of an oddball when it comes to all my language and lingo. It probably usually takes probably a new person to sort of our channel and listening to me. It probably takes you a good 6 months to get up to speed with all the language that I use. But anyway, I'm an old timer at this game. Tough for teach old dogs new tricks. A lot of the language and stuff that I use is stuff that I've picked up over the past 20, 30 years. Yeah, it's just the way that I am. I'm a bit of a curmudgeon that way. But nonetheless, so the point here is every week I like to put out the weekly chart, the daily chart, and then the 4-hour chart, give you an idea of what I'm sort of seeing in market price. Doesn't necessarily mean that there's a new trade, just, context. And if you can, especially through this most recent trough, I think that it was heavily seasonally driven, which you don't hear a lot of people in crypto and stuff talk about. So if you are interested in crypto, you're going to hear things that are like classic market commentary, seasonality, buy when it snows, sell when it goes, the explanation of tax loss selling, and then tax induced buying at the tops of markets, tax related induced buying, maybe we'll say, that you're probably not going to hear from too many others in the crypto space. I'm never going to bill myself as a crypto expert, and the technology is moving so far at lightning speed. It would just be foolish for me to go down that road. Having said that, I have been watching this space pretty closely for the past 10 years, and I have a pretty good idea of sort of its general behavioral nuances. And, I've said this to you repeatedly, and I hope you hear this message that we are getting ready for the next big sort of crypto cycle. And ironically enough, one of the absolute best sales testaments, I always get this wrong though, I think it's Google.trends. I think that's it, something like that. Chris, what is that right? Google.trends? I think that's the one I'm supposed to do.
Almost. Trends.google.
All right, trends.google. Oh, that's always nice. God, what a terrible thing to have in the search. Jerks. So if you just do Bitcoin, if anything, if you really want to, get rich from all this crap, I would disregard, Canada. Canada only represents like 2 or 3% of the world's equity. And Canada, for whatever it's worth, is an outright short right now. I've been barking to you, all of you, since the my greed fear cycle pivot at the end of 2017, beginning of 2018, that the commodity nations of the world were outright short. Stay the hell away from them. They got trouble written all over them. And I mean, you see the shit show that is Russia. I mean, that's just laughable. What a absolute collapse of that society. Thank you very much, stupid idiot Vladdy. And Australia, of course, that's just a comedy of errors. I mean, one of the guys we used to work and trade with, Andre, he left Australia because, geez, it was like $50 for a pack of smokes there. And I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, I had to quit smoking because the government just made it completely unaffordable for citizens. But I wouldn't be surprised if it's $50 Canadian for a pack of smokes. I know it's at least 20. So anyway, point of the matter here is, let's look at it worldwide trends. And I might even look at, say, something like the past 5 years or so. And, ironically enough, it doesn't matter what asset it is. I mean, ideally, you'd like to have assets that don't go off the board. So maybe avoid doing these kind of, this is actually what's called quantitative analysis. But do these kind of searches and stuff like this on assets that that are not going to go off the board. And I don't think Bitcoin has anything to worry about. But the point here is that nobody in the public's interested. And this, unfortunately, is exactly when you, as a smart money, more proactive people, should be interested. And actually, it was interesting, no pun intended, but one of our little old lady OGers, Eddie, I'm not quite sure if I have the correct spreadsheet here. I know Eddie, he just did up a new one, and actually he even tricked out actually, yeah, I guess here it all is. These are the names that I'm sort of accumulating for this upcoming altcoin cycle. Pretty diverse basket. Eddie, of course, I think Eddie's basically buying everything. There's Eddie's spreadsheet. Holy moly, is that huge? Eddie's going to be stinking rich by the end of all this. So way to go, Eddie. You are awesome. I know we have a few participants in the program. Kat, really? Kat, that new site member, she actually joined this? Isn't that interesting? Didn't expect that. I know Rush, you're in the hangout here with us. You should be on here. Yeah, that's a bit of a surprise, but good luck to her. I hope she does well. And actually, Chris, I think you should be on here somewhere. So anyway, this is, I think, a newer version of what we've been working on. We have various different spreadsheets and stuff. So the point being is that we are accumulating, and that's what you need to be doing. You need to be accumulating. You need to be buying when other people are selling and selling when other people are buying. That's how you make money in this game. So, I can't speak to each and every one of you, but I sure hope you're heeding our very simple advice. I mean, it's not specific, like, oh, go and buy this and you'll get rich. This is just really a question of cycles. I was kind of hoping as I could just show you. You can see we got a whole bunch of them on here. And I always do this every time I run into you guys. I always load these up at the last minute and I go, oh, not that one. No, that's not the one I wanted. Oh, that's not the one I wanted. I don't think this is the one that I wanted. This one is. Now, let's see. I mean, you guys have seen this 100 times from me, so it's certainly not anything new. The only question is, where the hell do I put all these damn things? Look at them. I got so many of these darn studies. I thought it was the 4-year cycles. But maybe it's this one. Is this it? Yeah, it is. So you guys have seen this 100 times from me. There's nothing new going on here whatsoever. In fact, fascinating how you can see the saucer bottom, and lo and behold, look at the damn saucer bottom that's coming in here. So, the 16 to 20 cycle, the counter trend rally off of the lows took us all the way right back up to Mountain Man level. 61.8 fib. That was this move here from there to there to there. So, I mean, I don't know how high we go here. I would say that we are in, how do you say this? We're in, well, I guess for lack of a better term, we're in a seasonally favorable window now. There's always a danger around that June event window, whether it be sort of like down under tax selling pressure. They have their year end July 1st. Actually, this is probably the chart we should go off of here, this weekly one. Brian's birthday. Hopefully you all remember that for the rest of your life, Brian's birthday. But usually this sort of May, June period is usually a tough period in the market. And just think of it sort of like October, November, December is usually a tough period. And then once we get into sort of the end of the year and start thinking about the coming year, then things firm up, especially in crypto, right? You can see how November is pretty weak here, November, December, and then we start to turn up. So, in essence, this May, June window is kind of the same thing on the other side of the calendar. But we're out of that, right? Here is the July 4th holiday weekend. Usually markets firm up heading into that holiday weekend. As I said, Bitcoin actually decided to jump up a week ahead of time on my vacation, jerks. And then all they've done is they've just parked it sideways now for 2 weeks, bastards. As soon as I come back from vacation, they're like, oh, that beamish guy's back. All right, everybody get rid of any volatility. We're going sideways now. Anyway. So we'll circle around and do the whole Bitcoin review from the newsletter here shortly. But I just wanted to comment, the simple fact of the matter is it looks like we've made it through this seasonally weak window. And fascinatingly enough, the only damage that we did was we just very briefly touched the first stop target, 38.2s, into Collins' pump chaser zone, and then just rallied smartly back up and actually printed new highs here, which in itself, like we said, when we get to the Bitcoin summary, we'll talk a little bit about that. That actually still means that we are technically pointing higher. So anyway, we'll see how that goes. Okay, so here's our weekly newsletter. Looking very crisp. Still don't like this big black space here. We got to figure out some work around this. That just looks yucky. But on a weekly basis, this is getting better and better. You can sign up for this newsletter. Doesn't cost you a penny. I think between Chris and I, we cover the major sort of news events that were relevant to crypto over the past week and the broader market. We also summarize sort of the basic trends that we've seen in the capital markets over the past week and any sort of driving influencers as well. We have a nice little overview of the breadth of the market. You can clearly see we've got a big M top working on Bitcoin itself, breadth wise, and the stock market. Now, just understand that the stock market here, we did the algo is still technically under construction, and Sure did have a couple brain farts there this past week or two. With the system erroneously printing 100 prints on the weekly basis. Our plan was that through 2022, 2023, we were sort of like more like beta. But just understand that when this thing is all fully operational and fully up and running, it's actually, we're not going to charge peanuts for this. We're going to charge top dollar. So if anybody is using this, understand you're getting a bit of a discount right now, especially all those people that were able to lock in really, really cheap prices like last year. Those cheap prices aren't going to stick around for too much longer. But anyway, the point of the matter here is that on the short term, we actually did see a bit of weakness come in on the US sort of broader stock market. And I was a bit surprised, to be honest with you. Here is that US stock market image. They rallied the market up into basically taking out this horizontal support and resistance level. dumped pretty aggressively there on the private payrolls data number, which was very, very strong out of the States. And then the government report came out on Friday, and it was substantially weaker than the private payrolls data. So the market actually initially rallied on that event. But as you can see, all the market did was just counter trend rally right into, basically what we teach everybody as actually this is a really good short trade location. Reload zones on the short side rallied right into that window, right into the original market structure top. In fact, you could even say, well, that Beamish guy, he's always talking about selling M's, and that right there, that level, see how the market broke there, the M confirmed there, counter trend rally. I mean, the irony of it all. So we could even do reload zones off of this range. And you notice that is a counter trend rally, reload zone rally, and then fail. And then we draw this even bigger one, counter trend rally. And I might even argue probably a lot of fund managers wanted to get short off of that clothesline basis. You've heard Brian talk about candle body lows for trade location. And then in the last hour of trade on Friday, I was quite surprised at this. The market just completely melted down here. So as you can see, I was anticipating we're going to get a nice polite M through reload short zones, maybe to consider buying puts or something. And it just was straight up and then straight back down. Boosh. So I don't know. I mean, it's not the most encouraging of pictures, that's for sure. But it is interesting how this image seems to correspond with the breadth data. What screen do I have that on? Over here. This just, it does not look like a very happy market. And even the smaller cap, right? This is the breadth of the market. So this is everybody, regardless of market cap. Unfortunately, with a lot of these indexes, they get manipulated because Apple is 8% of the damn index. So if Apple moves, then the index moves. If Apple doesn't move, then the index doesn't move. This is going to give you a picture of the entire market, and every single issue in this S&P 500 is all equally relevant. So as you can see, lower highs and lower lows defines a bear. And you see this right across the board on the breadth. So somebody's not very happy in stock land. Sectors rolling over. Commodities even look kind of sketchy. Bonds not looking too happy. In fact, look at the bond market's actually flatlining down at 0. That's not a good sign. And then if we go across the sort of international equity market, the landscape, you can see there is the American market. Looks like Europe is actually in the process of rolling over now. Toronto's kind of going sideways. Why? So I actually think energy and basic materials looks relatively attractive here. And unfortunately, we're just not updating Australia anymore. I haven't heard a lot of feedback from people and site members about Aussie stocks and stuff. If you want us to get this back up and running, please give us feedback and let us know that you're actually using it. But I just haven't heard much out of our Aussie audience that much lately. Then, of course, you see this in the newsletter. I don't really like to disseminate it too much in the public. Where did I put that? I guess must be a different tab. The breadth of the crypto market. I mean, what are you supposed to think when you see the market smiling at you? That's a big ugly M there. So I'm not quite sure. How do I say this? I'm a little skeptical because there was such a big rally ahead of that July event. There's an old expression in the market, and actually I have a bunch of charts open here. I've been sort of playing around with this because now we have to get used to this new futures proxy for short-term interest rates, this SOFR. And this would be sort of our most recent look at this. And if anything, yeah. Here's the 30-day Fed funds. That's your yellow line. This is the September SR, SOFR, whatever the fuck this thing's called. I want my euro dollars back. Thank you very much. 20th century called. They want their euro dollars back, right? Isn't that how the joke goes? Anyway. And this is the December contract of this SR. You can see how both of them are still higher than Fed funds. So it'll be interesting over time. I suppose I could probably even just do it now, but let's see if I can do this on the fly. And the problem here is that I think that the spot contract is not the same because there's the but I think it's 3 that we have to do. So I don't think I have that on here. So we'll go SR3 1 exclamation mark minus ZQ 1 exclamation mark. Will that work? I have no idea. But anyway, what this should give us is sort of our Fed spread trade data. Let's see if we get something here. Okay, well, that's not too bad. Let's to pin to new scale on the right. I guess we can just do a new one. And of course, we want this to be regular. There we go. So this spread, and actually, I don't think this even has it on it. SR3 1 exclamation mark. Oops, screwed that up. Let's try that again. SR3 1 exclamation mark. All right, so there it is. And what color is that? I don't know, it's purple or something. There it is there. So small spread, not much of a spread there between Fed funds, that's the yellow line, and the spot euro dollar market, SRF or SR3 or whatever the hell we're going to call this now. So interestingly enough, actually, I don't know whether that doesn't look right. 94.95, so that's 5.04%. And the Fed funds right now is at 5.3. So actually, this should be a minus here. Look like you can edit that. I'm not quite sure why. Oh, doesn't let you edit. Anyway, I gotta work on it over time. So the point of the matter here is that at this point, the spread had actually come in very narrow. You can see it was somewhat wide, and we've widened again. It does look like the Fed funds are actually trading at a premium to the spot SR3 funding market. But the deferred contracts are trading at a discount. So still trying to figure this out. But what am I trying to get at with all of this? Who can answer this riddle? Don't fight the something. And unfortunately, that right there is telling you you probably shouldn't fight the Fed here. We're not done raising short-term interest rates. And if anything, our commentary in the newsletter was it looks like, and this isn't really part of this conversation, but what the hell? It looks like and we really don't want to read too much into this until the end of this week because this past week was a holiday session. But on TRI's platform, for example, our algorithm right now if we go back to the front page, who are the strongest ETFs? Like, where is the money actually flowing in the market right now? And the strong ETFs are EPI, not sure what that is. XLE, that's energy. XLRE, that's real estate. EWI, I want to say that's like the Italian ETF, but I'm not positive. And then XLB, that's basic materials. So, like I said, we'll watch this through the coming week. Interesting just to see what the hell EPI is. Wisdom Tree India Fund. Oh, isn't that interesting? India's an interesting character, eh? I suppose all the Apple fans moving all of their business from China to India now. Anyway, that's interesting. India's a funny conundrum here. Anyway, XLE Energy, XLRE Real Estate, EWI. This is this is the Italian ETF. No idea what the hell's going on there. And then the last one on here we have XLB. That's basic materials, and so that would be sort of like all your commodities and stuff. Materials ETF. Not the prettiest of chart, but nonetheless, I guess my question here is, what's strong in the marketplace? And so that's where we sort of come back to this image. In the first 2 weeks of the quarter, we like to sort of see where the fund managers are putting money to work. And whatever outperforms, that's usually a pretty good indication of what the fund managers think is going to happen for the quarter. Last quarter, of course, we had technology, discretion, communication services dominating, which felt like we were sort of in this part of the cycle coming out of it. And as I said, materials, energy, if these are the strong parts of the market, then that means we're basically moving along the cycle, which means that we're probably going to have, maybe a market top, but usually interest rates are rising here, right? So if we have like bull market top, early recovery, full recovery. So, early recovery, full recovery. Our interest rates are we bottoming out? I don't think we ever did bottom out there on rates. Rising rapidly. I still think that the Fed is still thinking about raising interest rates. We're certainly not in falling rate environment. So one thing I did notice, which I was quite interested in, is I think the talk now is that the Fed and the banksters are not going to really be doing any sort of quantitative easing. I think those days are long over. And if anything, now the stimulus that the economy is going to be getting will come from fiscal measures. And, this is Biden's, that last massive sort of infrastructure spending plan and program that they put in place. I don't think the market actually needed it, but it is now sort of a stealthy stimulus program because the federal government down in the States is injecting a lot of stimulus through direct spending in the economy, which I think to a certain degree is actually helping things like industrial production quite a bit and sort of the demand for commodities. And I think this is sort of like Mr. Biden's sort of wet dream. This is what he wanted. I think he's publicly said that he wants to build the economy from the middle class out, right? Thinking about his dad punching a clock in the steel mill. So having said that, I just follow the chalk marks. And what I noticed, and actually I'm a bit surprised to be honest with you, because as we've been reporting over the past few days, the industrials actually were outperforming. So I was expecting that when I was going to pull this up and show you guys that the XLIs here were actually in the lead, but they're not. Now it's I don't know about the country funds. I mean, they're kind of interesting, but XLE's energy, XLRE's real estate, which is fascinating. I'm not quite sure what the story there is. And then XLB, of course, is basic materials, commodities. So I guess where I'm going with all that is I do like the idea that if the commodities are going to be outperforming, then I definitely like the idea that the Fed's going to have to be continuing to raise rates. And that would sort of imply that we're kind of in this part, basic materials and energy. If at the end of this week, those two are still on the leaderboard and they're still outperforming, then that clearly says to me bull market, market top. And of course, this would set up a nice September, October crash scenario. And I don't think in the States the crash is going to be that bad. In fact, I actually think that it's going to be sort of a non-event down in the United States because I think the U.S. economy, the infrastructure, Mr. Orange to pay all of his policies and stuff actually have set the United States up in really good standing. You want to know where the crash is going to hurt the most? You guys should probably be able to answer this. You've heard me talk at length about there's one particular part of the economy that you probably should avoid like the plague, and unfortunately substitute drama teachers were actually in charge of these places. And I mean, it's like a comedy of errors every single bloody week. How this guy, it's almost like he can't stop fucking the situation up, just making it worse and worse and worse. Yeah, what's up? Okay, that's good. Thank you for the heads up. I think I'm making my way through this document. I don't know whether I am or not. I'm probably just talking in circles here. My apologies if I'm not. But the point being that it's remarkable. Like you probably, wherever you are in the world, number one, you probably never even hear anything from Canada. I mean, I don't understand why you would. Like I said, Canada represents about 3% of the world's equity markets. But for fun, just go at it. This guy, look at it. He's so handsome and he's all clean cut. Hell, he even wears a shirt and tie for his YouTube videos. I mean, very impressive. That's probably half the reason why I don't have very many viewers is half the time I look like I just rolled out of bed with a 5 o'clock shadow. I don't know what you'd call this. I think this is called a Van Dyke, if I'm not mistaken, but maybe it's called a goatee. I don't know. Where's the camera? There I am. Anyway, I don't look nearly as handsome as this guy. But anyway, if you want to laugh and you want to hear about just absolutely ridiculously insane the situation is in my country, just go watch this guy's video. So it almost, and even I commented on one of his videos. I even said right off the bat, I can understand the laughter because a lot of people are like, why do you keep laughing on these videos? Because frankly, if you're Canadian and you see what's going on in this society, if you don't laugh, you're going to cry. Because it is like morally corrupt what these cocksucking son of the bitches are doing. This is morally corrupt. They just don't care about, and all this ideology about international socialism and we're doing this to help the working class, like Biden's bullshit. Who's the biggest beneficiary out of the United States supporting Ukraine right now? Is it the American working class, middle class, that he's going and diluting the purchasing power of the currency, which is creating hyperinflationary price pressures in our society? Certainly they can't be benefiting from all this ridiculous spending in Eastern Europe. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, Putin's an asshole and he's a murderer and he's going to stand up in front of his maker at some point, and his maker's going to be like, you got to go down there into hell. and enjoy being anally raped for the next 10,000 years. I mean, it's unconscionable what that cocksucking son of a bitch has done. I mean, hundreds of thousands, probably even approaching like a million humans now, he's directly fucked over. Not quite sure why this human civilization is like this, how one person can have such a detrimental effect. But on the flip side of the equation, you can't make the argument that Mr. Biden's helping Joe Sixpack in the United States. There's there's only one group that's actually benefiting from all of this ridiculous spending that's going on, and it's the shareholders of all these defense contractors. You go send $100 million of defense equipment, and keep in mind, like the Patriot missile system, they've actually proven that it's not that good. So it's ironic that they put a price tag of like $50 million on one of these systems. But what it really is the Americans are getting it off of their shelves. They're quote unquote donating it to Ukraine at the expense of the taxpayers. Taxpayers, of course, you saw all this debt relief bullshit. So taxpayers all of a sudden, hey, here's another $10 trillion in debt that you just volunteered to subsidize. The banksters, of course, they're charging interest on all this. So they're having a great old time. They're making tons of profit off of this. And of course, the defense contractors, they just get a new contract to replace the equipment that was just donated to Ukraine. It's a very convenient situation. They always say war is a very, very profitable business. So anyway, I wouldn't even be surprised at the end of all this, we find out that Putin got some sort of crazy kickback to start all this. But anyway, that's conspiracy theory. So the point here is, like I told this gentleman and his audience, if you don't laugh, you'll cry. So you might as well laugh because I mean, it's a joke with how these 1% manipulate these societies. It's kind of sad, really. But anyway. Okay, so Brian, get off your pulpit. And of course, that's why we have so few viewers. Is there ain't no way Google's gonna promote that kind of message, eh? Oh well. At least I'm not gonna sugarcoat the message. I'll hopefully just give you the straight goods. And I think everything that I just said there is common public knowledge. It's not like I'm revealing some huge conspiracy. Everybody knows this for fact. So anyway. And it just keeps the economic machine marching along here, right? Nothing really new here. Okay, where's our newsletter? Back to our newsletter. So we are, for whatever it's worth, we're now into Q3 2023. And as I said to you to start off this conversation, usually the first or second week of Q3 is that transition window where we start moving away from talking about things like interest rates and macroeconomic developments and geopolitical. And by the time we get into the second week of July, we're going to actually start talking about corporate earnings again. And that should break the whatever sort of negativity that we have priced into the market. Having said that, we do have a problem this particular year because we're in the midst of a Fed cycle, raising cycle. And as I used to show you guys off of the Fed spread charts, unfortunately, I don't have that now. And I've got to work on putting these all together again. But we should be coming to the end of this 4-year rate cycle peak. In fact, actually, I'm kind of surprised. Why did the sine waves and all that stuff get taken away from these charts? Because actually we did really, I guess, that's interesting. This has one sine wave on it. But obviously this isn't really the best image. But, this is one cycle. Yeah, this probably isn't the best one to use. We do have a shorter duration cycle window that actually pivots here around the middle of 2023. But I got to go and put all these damn charts back together again. It's so frustrating how these website platforms do this to you. And we're not done with this raise yet. In fact, maybe if I'm lucky, I can just throw this on here. Let's see if I can do this. I go monthly. Oh, maybe this is it. Hey, there we go. All right. So I caught a bit of a break there. So as you can see, I still have my money cycle sine wave on here. And this is pretty accurate, right? So here is year 2000. Of course, now we can't look at any data going back into the 1980s, which is a little frustrating. But you can see interest rate peak, interest rate trough. I mean, that worked pretty damn well, eh? Interest rate peak. Hey, son of a bitch. Interest rate trough. Wow, son of a gun. Interest rate peak, but of course, this was through the great financial crisis. And of course, everybody and their brother sort of got used to really low interest rates there. Then interest rate trough, of course, you can't really see the sine wave in here because they just basically left interest rates flat. Interest rate peak, that worked pretty well. This was an interesting point in the cycle because through here, this is where Mr. Trump kept going back to Mr. Powell and saying interest rates are too high. You should be lowering interest rates, right? Why aren't you lowering interest rates? Then mysteriously, we went into the sickness environment, and then all of a sudden, interest rates, right on cue. Fascinatingly enough, you can see where the sine wave pivoted, and look where rates pivoted. I mean, that's shocking, eh? So interest rate trough, interest rates fall, took interest rates right back to zero. Of course, through this window right here, this was, should we debate mortgaging our future? Shut the fuck up and give them all the money that they want, right? And the Fed took rates down to zero. They stepped in with their bazooka in the money market. I don't know whether you remember that, but basically guaranteed the market. But at the same time, too, Mr. Biden came along, Mr. Socialist, said free money for everybody. We're going to expand the middle class, and to hell with things like inflation. And Mr. Milton Friedman, if you ever listen to any of him, he would just simply say government money printing is the cause of inflation. So the Biden goes and does the extra stimulus program, which we really didn't need, and the economy went roaring higher to new highs. We could probably just throw the S&Ps on here just to give you an idea of what I'm talking about. So you can see this here. Well, here we go. So, here was your health crisis. Mr. Powell takes interest rates down to zero. And then Biden comes along and jams through another stimulus program, the infrastructure spending, which we really didn't need. The Fed really didn't want to raise rates, but the euro dollar market was starting to absolutely collapse. And let's see, maybe we can see that on here. Do we see that? Okay. I think this is right. SPY, what color is this? Can't see. Oh, it's interesting. They got both the stock market and this one the same color. How am I going to change that color? Fudge. Stupid. I don't know. Anyway, you can't see it here, but I think this is the Fed funds right here. So, it's a discount there is that low rate. And I think probably this is getting confusing now. Sorry, folks. Anyway, point here is that this stock market went booming higher here, and then all this inflation shit hit the fan. Somebody tell that goddamn fucking skeleton in the White House right now that you can't just go and same thing with substitute drama teachers in Canada, same damn thing. You can't just go and mindlessly print money and not have it affect the economy. Sure enough, they just turn the printing presses on, just spending money like drunken whores. And of course, they don't give a shit because all of their salaries are indexed to inflation and stuff. So it's not going to make a rat's ass difference in their lives. But literally at that moment when the stock market went absolutely insane there on that stimulus and inflation, we could probably throw the inflation numbers on here. You can see the money market just started to absolute collapse, and the Fed had no choice. They had to step in and they had to start raising interest rates. So, if anything, what we need to hear from these damn governments is, all right, maybe we need a little bit of fiscal austerity. A little bit of fiscal austerity will sort of stabilize things, and you probably find at that point the Fed starts saying, okay, you know what, maybe we're done raising interest rates. I don't know. We'll see what happens. So, what the hell am I trying to say out of all this? Under normal circumstances, I would expect that Q2 earnings would be a nice boost to the market. But having said that, everybody's on pins and needles right now about Fed. And they have publicly come out and said that they are going to be raising rates at least a couple more times before the end of the year. How exactly that goes is anybody's guess. My hunch, too, probably is they want to get as many interest rate increases as they can on the books done before we head into 2024, which of course is going to turn into be a very significant political year. And I do find that the banksters and the business world, they set the public up for this. So we knew that the United States, of course, has big elections once every 4 years. And frankly speaking, I said when Biden won, don't be surprised if 4 years from now, Mr. Trump comes storming back and might even create like a Napoleon scenario where he sets himself up as president of the United States this term and runs these stupid idiot socialists out of office, but then he becomes a totalitarian dictator. And, we've talked lots about how in 2027, 2028, there's supposed to be a staggering inflation spike. I wouldn't be surprised if, we get into a situation where, the world is just absolutely upset at the United States of America with Mr. Trump president, and there becomes some sort of collective sell on U.S. bonds, which of course drives interest rates through the roof, and we finish off this great reset event like we've been expecting all along. You've seen me talk lots about this, so there's no reason why anybody should hear this and go, really? In the late 19, this is the last great reset. And if we use comparison, you can see if we actually look at the percentage increases, 1942, we had these, double-digit inflation. Inflation was nothing in 41. By 42, you can see the massive ramp up in inflation. And of course, all around World War II. And what a surprise, we got Vladdy trying to start World War III here. And it wouldn't surprise me if there's some sort of nuclear event there in Eastern Europe as well. You notice, Fed's trying to get in front of interest rates, trying to, we talked about the interest rate 4-year cycle, the sine wave and all that. So it is interesting. 43, you can start to see the numbers falling off here dramatically, which is the same as 23 now. 44, which will be 24, you can see we actually get all the way back to zero. You might even find that the Fed says, hey, we actually have to do negative interest rates. Who knows? But then notice 46, 47, and look at these numbers in 47. Oh my goodness, that's almost 20% annual inflation rate. So this is exactly what I expect coming down the pike. And maybe it's something on the, Mr. Trump has decided that he is going to set himself up as the first dictator of the United States of America. Could happen. I'm also hearing too, and this is fascinating. I never expected this, but it makes perfect sense. Uh, I actually watched a really interesting article yesterday on how there is a movement on the eastern counties of all these stupid woke West Coasters. And it's right up and down the damn coast, whether it be Vancouver, here I am, or Seattle, or Portland and Oregon. But what's fascinating is there is actually a movement in Oregon, all of these eastern Oregon states here. This probably isn't the best. Maybe we can go map of Oregon counties. There's a movement within the state of Oregon. I thought this was super cool, that they are going to try and secede from the state of Oregon. So there might be like an East Oregon and a West Oregon. And they are actually they're lobbying to actually join the state of Idaho, which is so interesting. Can't write better fiction than reality. So this might be sort of the initial phases of a U.S. Civil War, where a century or two ago it was North versus South, but what I think I'm hearing of late is this might be like a West Coast tries to secede from the United States of America, or more importantly, the eastern portion of the West Coast wants to secede from these idiots and wants to join the more conservative mid-Western states. I don't know if that's the right term or not. But they did like a political breakdown map of the United States of America, and it's really only a sliver on the West Coast that's really as woke and all that nonsense as you hear on like YouTube and all that. It's like, and I thought it's fascinating because Oregon is sort of caught right in the middle of all this, and it was here's Idaho over here, like Boise, Idaho. I guess that's the state capital of Idaho there. So you can see how close it is to Eastern Oregon. But nobody's ever talked about this, eh? What a fascinating development, where you might find that Oregon itself splits, and this west part of the United States of America, maybe it dissolves into some sort of civil war kind of scenario. Wouldn't surprise me. It really wouldn't. I mean, you've heard Mr. Trump. What's his basic philosophy about California? I think we all know that. We don't need to answer that. So anyway. All right, so the point of the matter here is, oh boy, we are living in tumultuous times, no doubt about it. Coming back to reality here in the short term, as I had said earlier, when we did our sector rotation, usually what ends up happening is the economic cycle just basically moves from the left to the right. You could just draw an arrow heading this direction. As time passes, we move further and further along this cycle. And we're starting to get early anecdotal evidence. I did see in the TRI Lounge some people talking about the industrial sector doing better, and there were some industrial names that looked very interesting. And given Mr. Biden's stimulus program, build out the middle class and all that, well, that speaks to the industrial sector. It speaks to, he wants to build bridges and redo roads and all that kind of stuff, build steel mills and all that kind of stuff. So it really speaks to this part of the economy doing a lot better. Technology, communication services, discretionary to a certain degree, is actually kind of like the fluffy West Coast. Not very worker class, not very middle class, more like, Silicon Valley, that kind of thing. So if we were following the natural progression, we should be moving out of, Googles and Teslas and Microsofts and all that kind of stuff, and into Caterpillars and Boeings and basic materials, commodities, oil. Interestingly enough, like we follow the major markets here. This is just basic overview of the market. And of course, the gold and silver market are starting to peak up. They would be pretty good examples of that basic materials. And I get the feeling, although we did make a new low here, but I get the feeling that this gold market, we've established a range now. Any kind of W that comes in now would actually, in my eyes, set up a nice move substantially higher. So is this your window where we see 2,500 to 2,600 gold? It wouldn't surprise me between now and sort of the end of the year that we get that push, and especially if Mr. Biden's stimulus program is just going full steam ahead and they're just spending money like drunken horse. That's of course going to be inflationary. And interestingly enough, with gold actually did the best. And actually, maybe I should. Well, after. What am I trying to say here? If we look at something like Newmont Mining, when did Newmont Mining really do well? Newmont Mining did really, really well. We're gonna have to go back quite a ways here. We should be able to see this in the mid 1980s, not the early 1980s, but you can see there is Newmont. So 81, 82, 83, which is what I kind of think we're going through now. But look at what Newmont, this is the biggest gold stock in the world. Look what it did here through the mid 1980s. And that's what I think is going to happen here. So, and also too, this bodes very well for Bitcoin, right? And of course, we'll get to it in a moment, but other people in the marketplace are basically calling Bitcoin digital gold. And I wouldn't be surprised if Bitcoin has one hell of a rally here. So anyway. Okay, so moving along the economic cycle, industrials, basic materials, energy all appear to be catching a bit of a bid. I had pointed out on the site, this is the gold market. Gold usually doesn't turn until sort of August, so I wouldn't be surprised if we're a little bit early on the gold. But something like oil, I think could very easily move higher here. This is just basically the spot oil market, but like the futures market that I follow on a daily basis. I mean, damn, oil price up $2 on Friday alone. What letter of the alphabet does that look like? Uh-oh. So we all know that when we see these big honking W's, we should be thinking fogging bombs. And that means we probably should be thinking about $82 oil here in the near term anyway. This is that sort of basic materials kind of talk here. Where are we in this economic cycle? This is oil, right? If this thing, I mean, you've followed me and you've listened to me long enough about M's and W's in the marketplace. I wouldn't fight this, folks. So, where is that on this cycle? There's energy right there. There is market top. There is early recovery, full recovery. And of course, we talked a bit about how gold does relatively well. Probably in a month or two, it'll start moving. Don't think it's ready just yet. But there is energy right there. And of course, there is the industrials we talked about earlier. So, and rather than just sort of make the prognostication energy is going to do well, what I want to do is I want to listen to the market. So the biggest oil services stock in the world, Schlumberger, what direction is it pointing right now? And that looks like it's heading up. And of course, there's the W that came in there back November of 2020. So this thing's just been climbing. That's a monthly chart. If we look at the weekly price chart, yeah, there's an outside upside engulfing bar. That's usually bullish. Not quite a Q reversal, but a pretty darn bullish pattern anyway. W bottom. This is just one stock. There was another one that looked even better. Rig, Transocean, another huge oil services company. And look at that chart. I mean, gee whiz. You can see I already drew all the bullish. This is why I like this particular setup. And it is my preferred setup to trade trend continuation patterns. And hopefully all of you can see This is pretty well telegraphed. Break W on other sides of trend lines through 25 levels, and the most beautiful AB equals CD. That's oil, right? So I can't see tech really doing really well if these oil names look as strong as this. I don't know. I haven't even looked at Halliburton, but this is also another good oil services stock. Ugh, you tell me. Does that look slightly bullish? Jesus H Christ. It's no quitting that guy. The only problem is you can't really trade that. It's straight up. Candle engulfing bar, not really a key reversal and not a full bar chart engulfing bar. Candle body. So if anything, really good analogy. I couldn't touch this thing right now, but gee whiz, look at that bull, eh? Holy moly. So you can't tell me money isn't pouring into this guy. Mind you, I don't know what the hell this is. Hindustan Aeronaut? No, I'm looking at the wrong damn thing. What the hell is this? Oh, this is probably like an Indian stock. That's probably what that is. NSE? What's NSE? Is that India? It wouldn't surprise me, Halliburton, that's what I want to be looking for. Sorry about that, everybody. Let's see what Halliburton looks like. All right, there you go. That's what it should look like. That's funny. Yeah, higher highs and higher lows defines a bull. I suppose if you are a bull, you want to see this thing taken out up top. Cute little W's trying to come in here. This is the weekly price chart. I don't think there's really a trade for a guy like me here, but nonetheless, I can see that obviously. I mean, geez, 8% movement this past week. Yeah, I'd say that's feeling pretty uppy there. And that's that anecdotal evidence of, the fund managers. This is the beginning of Q3 here. The fund managers are coming in and they are buying this thing aggressively. So, probably should have, at the very least, we should have paid attention to what the hell they're saying with their pocketbooks. I don't know whether we're going to go off of that one or we go off of that one. And there's no trend line resistance here. This is all open air up here now. And I'd also say, too, we could do a fog and bomb off of that level there. This also, we could do one off of here. So there's a couple levels to shoot for, and then we can also do things like reload zones, like so. And then we could probably also do things like, what would be, well, we'll leave it at that. So I do like this 2.618 lining up with this reload zone coming into all of these traffic areas. A little bit of a gap still left open up top there. So, I mean, I don't know whether that I know for certain that there isn't a trade for me to do right here, but it does look like this thing's pointing up, and it's still pointing up into this window up here. So just there are a bunch of oil stocks, and of course, why am I mentioning all this? Where are we on this economic cycle? I'm seeing money coming into the basic materials, energies, industrials. Interesting this past week. We always say you should never, ever, ever trade off of non-farm payrolls data. So this past week's data coming out of the private sector painted a very, very different picture than the data coming out of the public sector. And as we've said repeatedly, the public sector data, I guess that would be the Bureau of Labor Statistics or something along those lines down in the States. The data is highly, let's call it finessed to send a very desired message about the economy. I think probably the thing, and we have these weak economic data prints, and everybody's saying that the economy is going to roll over. I wonder though whether the data is actually being underrepresented from the public institutions, because keep in mind, if Mr. Biden wants a very specific policy, if he wants to continue this mindless infrastructure spending because it absolutely needed, then he's going to want government data to actually come in weak. I mean, it's common sense. It's just the way these stupid politicians work. So the thing that really jumped out at me this past week was let's see if we can just put this on here. And I don't know whether it'll be on here or not. Doesn't look like they even have it on here. It's kind of a shame. Maybe two. Wednesday. Anyway, the private data came out on, it was either Wednesday or Thursday. Maybe it was Thursday. And it showed a huge increase in jobs. Here, the ADP employment report, 497,000 new jobs. That's a pretty damn big number. And ironically enough, the only time that I remember seeing those kind of numbers in the past was in the 1980s, where you'd have like literally 500,000 new jobs created on a monthly basis. The only problem with this kind of data is how on earth do you justify the socialist, insane government spending in the face of that? I mean, that's on top of this, because remember, job seekers, of course, are highly inflationary. They're 2/3 the cost of business. So if the economy is adding tons and tons and tons of new jobs, and the government is injecting tons and tons and tons of federal spending into the economy, that's hyperinflationary. So interesting how on Friday, the data non-farm payrolls came in 209,000 and actually much less than expected. Who's right and who's wrong here? Ironically enough, I think I would actually feel more comfortable believing the ADP data because this is a private organization versus the government data, which, as I said, I used to read a guy named Dennis Gartman. He used to have the Gartman letter every morning when I was a broker. We used to always read it. And then he went on and became somewhat famous on things like CNBC. But and then it turns out he doesn't have a crystal ball. So then people stopped respecting him because he couldn't predict the future, which I don't think anybody can. But anyway, so the point here is that he used to always say, never, ever, ever trade non-farm payrolls, this U.S. government data report, because guaranteed you will actually find that months down the road, the government will go and revise this month's data. And you might find that 2 months from now, they quietly announced that they have revised in the middle of September, they have revised this July report to be 100,000 more than was actually printed. I don't know whether that's actually tradable information for you, but this is great stuff for your journal. If you've never heard this before, for God's sakes, write this down. Take screenshots of this. And then, of course, hold me to account, right? A month, 2 months, 3 months from now, say, hey, Brian, yeah, I remember we talked about how the you really shouldn't trust the government employment report. Well, let's see how it did. Was it right, or was the private number more accurate? To see such a massive disconnect between these two, it leads me to believe that this is awfully suspect in here. That doesn't seem like that's a real number here. Something's not right about that. Also, too, usually we say that the Canadian economy is about 1/10 the size of the US economy. Again, if you've never heard that before, write it down. So the point being here, you see the Canadian economy added the better part of 60,000 new jobs. So if we use that 10% analogy, that would also be about 500,000 new jobs down in the States, which aligns more closely with this ADP report rather than Joe Biden's finesse numbers here and the U.S. non-farm payrolls report. So I was a bit surprised because what ended up happening, of course, was, very early in the week, we had ISM numbers that came in soft. So this should imply a weaker economy, generally speaking. But then we had fairly strong housing numbers. The housing industry is not collapsing. And in fact, I think what's happening in the housing industry is, simply put, the baby boomers have bought and paid for their houses. And everybody was expecting the baby boomers, once they hit retirement, to want to downsize and want to move to Florida, want to move to California, want to move to Arizona, whatever. And I think they're doing that. And in Canada, Vancouver's the only place in this country that's habitable in the wintertime. Isn't that right, Mr. B? I think Mr. B is Canadian here. B says this buddy Brian here is going to get his bank account frozen. P.S. I've already removed like 90% of all my assets out of Canadian banks. So trust me, I'm already expecting it. So interesting comment there, B. And yeah, you're absolutely right. It's damn commies. Anyway, but the point here is that, and even here you see factory orders down in the States. 0.3%, even though the market was looking for 1.5%. That's a pretty big miss. So what's happening here is that the interest rate increases are having the desired effect, but it's not touching the housing market. Why? Well, because baby boomers bought their houses, spent their entire lives paying off the damn houses. There's lots of people like Sjord, for example, who went and took advantage of the really, really low interest rates there in 2000, 2001, locked in a long-term mortgage at almost no interest. And none of those people have any interest in selling. That's what's really going on here with the housing market. And then to add insult to injury, which I find fascinating, because now not only is it in Canada, I think there was like a conspiracy by the 1%, by the Klauses, the World Economic Forums, all these jerks, to hyperinflate our society. And of course, the only way to deal with the baby boomer aging demographic problem in the West is just to bring a whole bunch of new people in from third world nations. And of course, they don't know how good we had it in countries like Canada 10, 20, 30 years ago with very low inflation and relatively high standard of living. They're coming from a really shitty standard of living. They're coming from societies where the people that run the society completely fuck the public over on a daily basis. I mean, you see what life in Turkey is like. It's a laughing stock. And that's pretty typical. I mean, hell, how corrupt Ukraine is anyway. I mean, it's just business as usual. If the mid-level bureaucrats can somehow steal the wealth of the nation, everybody tries to do it. I mean, that's how brutally corrupt all these societies are. So, hey, let's just bring all those people into these Western nations, hyperinflate the societies, and fuck over the Canadians. You were born in Canada? Fuck you, you stupid piece of shit. You're worthless as far as we're concerned. You're not part of this equation. So that's what I think is going on. What I find fascinating is that it's not just happening in Canada, but hats off to the good people of the Netherlands. They're at least standing up and saying, enough of this bullshit. Where a politician comes out to a young girl who was born and raised in the Netherlands, says, how the hell am I supposed to live in this society? How am I supposed to get ahead? And the fucking politicians go, oh, you got a nice ass. You got some nice tits. Go and find yourself a nice sugar daddy and whore yourself out, and he'll take care of you. And that's the way you solve your problem. Can you believe a fucking politician actually said that to a citizen of a country? Come on. I mean, it's not that far behind that substitute drama teachers are going to be saying that kind of shit in my country. So if anything, hats off to the Dutch, hats off to them for standing up and saying, enough is enough. This is getting ridiculous. So I just hope, as I said in this tweet, I hope that my local idiots are held to the same account as the Dutch are holding their democratically elected politicians. Anyway, we'll see what happens. So, oh boy, Brian's full of piss and vinegar today, eh? Anyway, hope you're enjoying the edutainment. So, I think there's a bit of finessing of some of the economic data coming out of the United States for political purposes. I think the economies are actually fairly strong in the United States, and I think the structural situation in the United States is very positive. I think the totalitarian dictatorships are an absolute joke, and they are literally teetering on the brink of collapse. And if anything, what would probably be a great catalyst here to launch us into this new century and this growth cycle is for countries like China to collapse, for countries like Russia to collapse. No idea if it's going to happen or not, but it would be my wish that totalitarian dictatorships are a thing of the 20th century and we move away from that type of world. And if anything, like I said, with regard to things like the Netherlands, it's nice to see that the local populations are sort of standing up to these oligarchs, standing up to these very bizarre democratically elected politicians that fancy themselves dictators. And I see on a daily basis, this Trudeau's guys, his days are numbered. There's no way in hell I could see him getting reelected next election. And, it's interesting. I had made reference earlier, 2024, whether it be in the Netherlands, they are going to have a huge siege shift here. Clearly, I get the impression that existing government, there's going to be a big change there. Obviously, down in the States, somebody place a bet with me. Maybe we'll just call it a gentleman's bet or a gentle houseplant bet, since we're not allowed to use pronouns. Stupid. I think Mr. Trump's going to be the next president of the United States of America. I can see it coming. And that's what I predicted at the end of that last election. And I can't believe how this skeleton has completely undermined the whole sort of, socialist Democrat sort of spin, and how Mr. Trump is just getting more and more inertia every day. And the interesting thing about this is, does this play into the banksters' hands? And I actually think it does, believe it or not. If anything, I actually think that the banksters, they're not very happy with the way that the socialists went way overboard here. I don't think that the banksters are overly happy with what the situation in my country is with the runaway spending. But unfortunately, there's nothing that they can do in the face of these governments. I don't know. That's a tough one. Probably Brian's opinion's meaningless there. But anyway. So I guess what I'm just trying to say here is I think 2024 is going to be a major political upheaval year. And I think that the banksters, the people who are running sort of short-term interest rate policy and all that, they're going to want to try and jack up interest rates as much as they possibly can before we get into that environment. Because once we're into the political environment, they want to be perceived as not part of this conversation, even though they clearly are, but they want to be perceived by the public that, oh no, you have free will. You are making the democratic decision in your society. We banksters, we are in the background and we don't have any part of this. That's a load of horse shit, but nonetheless, that's what I think is happening here. All right. So, to that end, I do not think it's an accident. I don't think this is an accident whatsoever, folks. I really don't. that you know who is coming in here and pounding the table for the Bitcoin ETF here. I don't think this is an accident one bit. And more importantly, his specific words that he is using, talking about, he's going to now make it so everybody in media, ironically enough, including the people at Fox, including the people at CNBC, including the people at MSNBC, they are now going to be programmed to spit out the line Bitcoin is digital gold and it is an international asset, i.e., sorry, SEC, there's not a damn thing you can do about this because, hell, we in the international world are actually about to devalue the US dollar. I don't think that that's an accident one bit. And then remember, full circle, we already know what's coming. Oh, damn it. I hate when I do this because I have it like everything all perfectly laid out and then I can't find the reference, right? We all know that 1947, 2027, I mean, we're going to be in like double digit inflation. This is the devaluation of your currency right there. Probably collapse in the bond market. You can't give away bonds in this kind of environment. It's coming. And the irony of it all is that, this guy, I don't know how much of the world he actually controls, but I think it's a pretty big chunk. And he is basically coming right out and saying, get ready. Of course, if you believe in Mr. Funstrat, the hell's his name? Tom Vu? No, not Tom Vu. What the hell is his name? I think it's Tom, but I might be mistaken. Funstrat. Tom Lee. There he is. Oh, it's very hard to mistake that. Anyway, Mr. Lee's calling for $500,000 Bitcoin. Now, is it because Bitcoin is worth $500,000 a piece? And oh my goodness, this thing's going to be bigger than the whole world economy? Or, and this is what I think, it's because the US dollar is worthless. All of these Western nations' currencies, Canadian dollar, Australian dollar, British pound, euro, US dollar, in this kind of environment, they're all just going to be collapsing in value. And they're all going to be moving down in unison. So you don't actually see, oh my goodness, look how the British pound collapsed there versus the US dollar. It's not going to be like that. They're all going to move down in unison. And what is going to move up is the price of everything in our society relative to these currencies, i.e., inflation. And so it's not necessarily that Bitcoin at $500,000 a piece is so, it's so incredibly valuable. It's that the thing that you're valuing this Bitcoin thing in is worthless. And yeah, DMAC, you've heard me say it plenty of times. What is going to be the cost of a loaf of bread at your grocery store through that event? And I got a sneaky suspicion it's going to be ugly, folks. Good part about it is that Armageddon isn't for a few years. And if anything, if you can get yourself positioned, if you can find good quality crypto stories, is that an oxymoron? I'm not quite sure. Guys that I like to listen to are like Colin and his Pump Chasers. They have a pretty good ear on their website. And actually, we're even thinking about having Colin come back in the middle of July and do one of his Friday specials with a few of his Hero Exchange buddies who have a few names. I know there's one like Blockchain, something block. I want to say block. Anyway, I can't remember the name off the top of my head. Maybe somebody here can remember. But that block, I want to say block phi or something like that. But now you got to find those quality names, because I even said it before when I started off this conversation with you guys, that what you really want to do is, if you want to invest, you want to make life-changing events, and you want to change your life for the better, and you want to, I mean, for lack of a better term, get rich, right, and all that kind of shit. You got to be stepping in on this stuff and buying this stuff when the public is not interested. And when that jerk is going on Saturday Night Live and touting about how wonderful he is, even though he doesn't say a damn thing, that's actually when you got to be getting the hell out of this shit. Now, I don't know whether you can do that or not. That's up to you. I can't, as Ross Perot said, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it eat peanut butter. I can blab on and on and on and on. Kat, our latest addition to our little old lady plan, she was the one. Let's try not to swear on YouTube. And by the way, hit the like button, subscribe, ring the bell for notifications when these videos start. I'd appreciate it. It helps all the algorithms and all that kind of stuff. But she said, instead of Brian, you swearing on YouTube, let's say just get your skirt together, as opposed to another word that starts with S that, of course, you're not supposed to say publicly. So this is the time to do it, folks. This is the time to find your stories. I've got Sjord. Hey, Sjord's on the website. Just came in and said good evening all. So there he is doing his thing. I've got Sjord right now. Sjord knows this crypto space way better than I would ever know it. He's got about a half a dozen names that he has picked out that he thinks are really good quality fundamental names. And we're putting some serious money to work in these names. And when the market goes ape poop like this, and of course the public is coming in on the buy side, that's of course when we want to be selling. And at that point, hopefully that's sort of, I'm thinking the end of 2025, the beginning of 2026, that's when we need to be going and island shopping. And Eddie, if anything, in your document, I think what would be a really good idea is we actually now start to put together the sort of resources that we're going to need to actually go island shopping. So, we need to find all the websites and stuff that list all these islands. And, do we want to get in touch with the Portuguese lady? I'm kind of thinking that we should be able to make so much money that Portuguese lady, fuck her. Let's go get like 100, 200 acre island and set ourselves up pretty good. Or maybe a whole string of islands and each of us buys our own damn island, right? Or TBG, he's exploring El Salvador right now. I'm sure there's probably islands off the coast of El Salvador. There's Rush. Rush says he has a friend who sells islands for a living. Well, Rush, maybe that's your contribution to our fun little group. Actually, this is Eddie's updated one. Let's see. We can show you what Rush looks like. You ready to see what Rush looks like? Although I'm not quite sure if I have it here or not. Let's see. This is about as far as Rush wants you to know who he is. Ready? Here's Rush. There's Rush. So that's a guy. He knows a guy who knows a guy who knows a guy who's selling islands on the side. So, and hey, considering you hear Brian's rants about, Big Brother and all that shit, hey, I don't blame him for wanting to stay anonymous. But anyway, I sure hope you're filling up your basket a little bit more than this, though, Mr. Rush. As you see, there's Brian, big fat butt. He's filling up his basket. Oh, nice to see TBG's filling up his basket. Good for you. Excellent. You can see we have a few other people on this site that are participating. Josh, get off your ass, man. We got to get you accumulating here. So the point here is, proof of the pudding's in your eating. Remember I had said, Sjord, there's Mr. Panicook himself. So there are his names that he really likes. And, take a screenshot of that. That's free information. And it's right there. This guy knows crypto better than probably 90% of the people that work in this space, because he actually understands the actual application of this and how you actually value all this stuff. So, I mean, there's a treat for you. I'll put it in the lounge. Everybody fucking bookmark that. That's gold right there. Jeez, free information. Anyway, so point is that you can see how serious we are about this endeavor. We're serious. This is how that silly little Beamish guy, he's not so little, but nonetheless, how he actually has the audacity to say that I can take $500 and turn it into hundreds of thousands of dollars. This is exactly what we're going to do this go round. It's no different. Same poop, different pile. But it's exactly the same logic. Is you have to force yourself to come in and accumulate when nobody else is interested in this. Can you do that? I don't know. You want to join the website? You want to participate in our education plan? We'll teach you how to put all the pieces in place to both manage yourself and manage your assets through this process. Take appropriate risks. How do you set yourself up for success? That's what our whole education plan is all about. It's up to you. Do you want to join us? As I said, I can lead all you horses to water, but I can't make you eat peanut butter. If you won't eat, you won't eat. Okay, let's keep moving this train forward. How am I doing on? All right, so here we go. Okay, so and we'll talk a little bit about Bitcoin in a moment, but just specifically with regard to Bitcoin now, I think Mr. BlackRock coming in here and making the kind of statements that he had, this is in essence putting in a base for the market. I actually like the idea, kind of like what we saw last cycle. And who can tell me, right? Because it's really important that you understand this. Let's do a comparison. I mean, first and foremost, would Brian want you to be buying Bitcoin there? Or really even like there? Is that where Brian would like you to be thinking about loading up on Bitcoins? Hopefully that answers fairly easy, because I think this is the stage that we're in right now, is here. We said, of course, that the price loves to bottom about 6 months or so ahead of halving events. And the easiest way to see that is to let's see if I can find it. What am I looking for? Cost of production. Right, so this is Shane's contribution to the world. S17s are actually unprofitable at current prices. 19P, 19XP, and there's also another version, and its cost of production is very similar to this XP number. These guys are actually still profitable. We know that if we want to invest in Bitcoin, we would, and really any commodity for that matter, and if I was a broker, I would be saying exactly the same thing. On any commodity, if you want to invest in it, you want to try and buy value. You want to try and buy at or below cost of production. So here we are way up here. Here is cost of production down here. Is this value? I don't think so. And I would argue that this is a very similar image to sort of this market state. Also, too, like we said, Bitcoin loves to bottom about 6 months ahead of halving events. So you can see there was the halving event. last cycle, which was May 2020. See the big jump up in difficulty and the cost of production numbers. That I think is your easy tell to see exactly when the halving event happens. And you can see that the market actually sort of just it wanted to bottom through this window here. But the question I have for all of you, again, I think we're sort of over here. So we still have to go through this window here. And the question I would have for you is, first and foremost, does Brian want you to be buying here? And the answer is just simple no. But probably more importantly, this dump in price into where I would like you to be thinking about buying reload zones, and also to cost of production, where is value in this Bitcoin story. You can see there is the higher time frame reload zone, green box. There is the cost of production. So this is sort of like where technical analysis meets fundamental analysis, or what they call rational analysis, down in here. So the question I have for you is, did Bitcoin price go from this high down to this low because of Bitcoin? Did it have anything to do with Bitcoin at all? The answer is an unequivocal no. Nothing to do with Bitcoin whatsoever. Everything to do with, somebody did something over there in a health facility in China. But hey, don't say China, that it's a China virus. That wouldn't be accurate. Give me a fucking break. The point here is this is the whole damn world going into crisis. Was the crisis actually manufactured? I actually think it was, but that's where Mr. B here, of course, he is probably a CSIS representative, and he's really actually saying, "Hey, Brian, I'm not telling you to be quiet because Big Brother might silence you. I'm telling you to be quiet because I am Big Brother and I am going to freeze your bank accounts." But anyway, Brian, I mean, if it's one thing, hopefully all of you respect out of me, is that the message never changes out of me. I always speak my mind. I always say my piece. I always say exactly what I think. It's either it's a feature or a benefit. I'm not quite sure which, or maybe it's a flaw. I don't know. Anyway, so this is what I need for you to concentrate on if you really want to try and buy cheap Bitcoin here over the next, I don't know, let's say 6 to 12 months, is we actually want to see some exogenous, I think that's the right word, existential bullshit excuse. Because I did find it really interesting that if you listen to Grandma, and I think Grandma now is our latest proxy on Greta, she's actually now going to China and saying, we need you to fall in line with climate change bullshit. Which, of course, we've told you repeatedly, those bottles of bleach to get this hair this white, they don't come cheap, do they? Just kidding. But, the World Economic Forum, Mr. fucking fat ass dude that's bigger than 20 of us combined from the Bank of International Settlements, hates crypto and all that nonsense. But, they want to ram down our throats $100 trillion in bank lending to finance this green, quote unquote, even though you see report after report after report that, did anybody notice electric vehicles actually are not very green? Which, the only person out there that goes, oh yeah, no, they're much better than thing like combustion engines is, of course, Alan. But does Alan have maybe a slightly biased view? That's another conversation. But anyway, the point of the matter here is Oh, what a coincidence. Grandma now, because China's just basically, if you actually look at the actual pollution in places like China, or if you go down to Central and South America that have nothing to do with like carbon taxes in Canada, I mean, they're turning what used to be tropical environments into wastelands. They look worse than like the moon right now, especially down in like countries like I think it's like Peru. I saw Bolivia, I think it is. I saw this one article recently that the mafias down there have taken over the interior of Bolivia where the government can't even go into these areas. And they're using mercury to extract the gold out of the ore. And the mercury is literally turning the tropical jungle into an absolute wasteland. And I've shown you repeatedly, there are just staggering environmental, just atrocities going on inside China right now, where they're planting stones glued to rebarb and then painting the ground green to try and fool the CCP monitors, whoever the fuck they are. They, of course, take bribes and all that kind of crap. So, what we do in the West is almost laughable in comparison to the absolute degradation of our society and our planet and not society, our ecology going on around the rest of the world right now. I mean, it's almost laughable how we in Canada, for instance, we have to suffer through these stupid carbon taxes, and yet it's not going to solve any problems whatsoever. It's just going to mean that our standard of living in Canada just gets knocked down that much more. The solution to this is to invest in technology to offset the increase in carbon being added to our atmosphere. And, there are lots of guys on social media and stuff that actually publicly tout, hey, this technology works really great at removing CO2 from the environment, but they're not interested in any of that shit. All they're really interested in is promoting the Great Reset. $100 trillion in new bank lending. Where's that money going to come from? Oh, well, they're just going to print it out of thin air. Well, why are they going to do that? Well, because the American public has been rammed down their throats that we're going to hell in a handbasket, and Granny's the only way that's going to be able to save us is if you go and commit yourself to a whole bunch more debt. And of course, the banksters charge interest on all this new debt. And of course, that lines their pockets immensely. And of course, on social media and stuff, you see lots of commentary about how the Rothschilds just continue to get richer and richer and richer at the expense of all of us schlubs. I mean, that's what's really going on here, which is such a shame. So, anyway, the point of all this is I believe that there is going to be some sort of existential threat created to justify knocking prices, also in the stock market too, down this fall. And that, in my opinion, is going to set up one hell of a buying opportunity within crypto. I really believe that. And that's exactly what happened here. So, can you set yourself up to take advantage of this opportunity? I don't know. That's up to you. It's up to you and your plan. But I see it coming 100 miles an hour. And as I said, there's a million different ways to skin the cat. And one way that we have a lot of fun doing the skinning of the cats is to create little fun little altcoin portfolios. Here's a really good example of one. I love the look of this name. I mean, you tell me, when the public starts coming back in on this thing, is there any chance they're going to bid this thing back up into these levels? I mean, you know the answer. And you can go name after name after name after name. I love this energy webs. That's such a cool little story. That's one that Chico kind of likes. But you tell me, is there any money to be made on this? And of course, the funny story, and this is going to be, I think this is going to be my meme. And I'm going to actually leave this space entirely if this actually happens. But I believe the UBIC is just yet another example. I mean, this is on Trek, so it's nothing. But this is another example of a name where if you just went and picked up a little bit of this, don't get too wrapped up in the short term. This is 2 cents. I mean, 20 cents is right here. That's 10x. $2. And keep in mind that this high here, this last cycle was 75 cents. So that's like what? Almost 8x or 80x, beg your pardon, from these current levels. I mean, this is how I want to make my money in this space. And I've told everybody, and it'll be a fun little anecdote, that if indeed this does happen and they ramp it up, but I'm not selling until I see actual new highs. And can't really show it onto you on here. But the old highs on this thing in that 17-18 bull were like $8, which is a little bit ridiculous. But if they do take it up to those levels, then according to my UBIC NFT, I will publicly dye my hair purple. And that will be my swan song for this whole public participation in social media. And mark my words, if this happens, I will do this. And then I will kiss all of you goodbye. And I'm moving to my island with Liam. And that's the end of Brian. Yeah, everybody that knows me, of course, will continue, but I won't do any more of this social nonsense stuff. So somebody record that, write that down, hold me to account, and I will. I don't have a problem. Okay, so the point of the matter here is I think, I don't think it's a good idea to chase. And what I basically said here, and it's the same thing as I always say, I start off with a weekly summary, then a daily summary, then a 4-hour summary, of course, for the degens, the traders of this world. But I don't think this is actually a very good trading location here. No, I beg your pardon. I think trades, there might be some up, there might be some down. Traders need volatility to make money. So I think trading, there's probably money to be made. Hell, you could probably even set up like a BlackRock fuck you fund. And you're just going to short every time BlackRock goes out and takes out stops to the upside. And you're going to buy every time BlackRock takes out stops to the downside. It'd probably actually be a very profitable trading plan. But off the weekly price chart, is that a place where I can invest? And the answer simply is no. No. I cannot invest there. I'm going to draw my reload zones like we always do. And wherever 61.8 to 78.6 is, that's where I can start thinking. And if I want to work stink bids right down at the bottom end of the range, perfectly fine. And of course, we're going to be like buying when others are crying and selling when others are young. Yeah, we'll call it the BRFF TS. BRFF. I like that thinking. And actually, there's one guy who's gotten really, really good in the day trading room, trading these FU moves. And his name's Craig, aka Casper. He's got the Nebraska day trading plan down cold, and he's like consistently profitable day trader, just trading the FU moves. He does very, very well. So proud of him. All right, so trend is up. There's the moving averages crossing back bullish. So I wouldn't fight the trend. Double bottom bull signals were, of course, over here. You could have bought pullbacks into reload zones, maybe work a stink bid against moving average support. That's up to you. That was a tough one, but I do remember when that came in. That was a pretty good signal. Once we jumped up into here, now we're starting to talk 38.2 to 50% just off this previous range. So if anything, I have to start cooling my jets. And then also notice too, this is basically a doubling in price off of the lows. I don't think that's an accident either. We have pushed to new highs. So I think PTR says that this is a bearish divergence. I think it's still potential right now. This is actually a really important concept that most people in the marketplace never learn. They never understand this, the difference between potential and confirmed. I suppose you could argue, well, we do have a weekly confirmed bearish divergence in MACD histogram, so I'll give you that. I don't know whether we had a yeah, I mean, this looks very sloppy here. I think what I need for this RSI divergence to actually be like, oh my goodness, this is solid. We better pay attention. This is, the sentiment has changed. I think we probably need to see this div come in there to there to there, which means we need to see a serious break. On that event right there, then I think we can start saying, all right, we have weekly bearish divergence. Here's a really good example of that same sort of image. Do you see how well defined this is? Then if we go back to that, that was through here. I mean, that's what I need to see, is that really well defined M top there. And also too, what I'd like to see, notice how the bear div on MACD came in after. So this one's a little bit suspicious because the RSI div never did form there. The MACD div formed, but we really didn't have any break in volume either. You can see how the bears were starting to ramp up here, but then the bears just went right back to sleep. The bulls actually woke back up. Yeah, the bulls haven't really fallen asleep, but where are the bears? The bears are nowhere to be seen. And if anything, what you need to see is a big honking red bar, really nasty price action. And then that will force RSI to break here, form this M top. And then I think you can say, all right, we've got the weekly div solidly in place. I'd still say I think it's forming right now. And if anything, the one sort of savior for the volume pattern is, yes, we have a lot of buying interest there. Waned here. Then we started to trend lower. There was a problem here. The bears started to wake up. Then you notice the bears started to fall asleep. So if we get a down day less than, it looks like this, and is this, yeah, this is a weekly chart. So if we get a down day less than 10,225 coins, excuse me, a weekly, then that actually means that the bears have officially fallen asleep. Right now we're at 10,000, or we just did 10,035. So it was very, very close, but it wasn't lower. But notice here today, we're only at 9,700. Whoa. If we finish like this here today with a red bar, that means the bears have fallen asleep again. And then notice, yes, the bulls have fallen asleep, lower highs and lower lows, but look here, higher, higher, higher. So the bulls are actually waking up here to a certain degree while the bears are falling asleep. So that to me is not very bearish. I suppose you could argue that the bulls will fall asleep if you see that we do an up week of less than whatever that low is there. So that low is 7,899. So you have your numbers drawn. Also, too, remember that we're heading out of this seasonally weak window. So where are we here? This one. Oh, yeah, sorry. So through here, this is when we were supposed to expect the weakness, Brian's birthday, all that crap, right? But we're now transitioning out of that window. And I got to say, as long as this guy is talking this way, I can't see Bitcoin breaking down here in the short term. I think if anything, we're transitioning now into whatever the summer sort of rally window is going to be looking like. But as long as Mr. BlackRock is talking the way that he is, I can't see Bitcoin rolling over. Now, I could see that the SEC and the US government and Biden, of course, himself hates crypto and hates all of this sort of be your own banker. To hell with the US government. They're all a bunch of crooks. To hell with the US banking system. They're all a bunch of crooks. I could see him say things like, well, US citizens are outlawed from dealing with overseas exchanges. That will have absolutely nothing to do with Bitcoin and have everything to do with the United States of America. And it might even facilitate, exaggerate this shift back to Trump, because anybody that's a Bitcoin fan or crypto fan is instantly going to become like a Biden hater. So that's just going to add fuel to the fire. But it'll have nothing to do with Bitcoin. Also, too, I wouldn't be surprised if this fall, getting ready for 2024, mysteriously, the COVID sickness mysteriously resurfaces. Thought it was interesting that a Ontario, which is the biggest province in my country population-wise, an Ontario bureaucrat came out of nowhere last week and said, we are thinking about reinstating mask mandates. Keep in mind, Canada is basically a totalitarian country now. And of course, I could have my bank accounts frozen on a moment's notice thanks to substitute drama teachers. United States, you still have a little bit of freedom. So for God's sakes, hold on to that freedom, you Americans. Fight tooth and nail to keep it, because like my country, technically we don't have any freedoms. And it's even written into our constitution that the prime minister of Canada can revoke all citizens' rights on a moment's notice if he feels like it. And he has done it, right? He went and froze all the truckers' assets and basically turned them into social pariahs, just on a drop of a hat. So I think while we're in this sort of BlackRock is promoting, and of course they want this ETF listing, I think there's going to be a certain sort of fight with Binance and with tethers and stuff. And I did start to hear some tether FUD over the weekend. So just be understand that sort of albatross is hanging around our necks here to a certain degree. So I don't necessarily see Bitcoin breaking here, but this is exactly the same as I've always said to you guys. I think any kind of pullbacks in earnest are buying opportunities. And of course, as I've been going on at length about here today, if you find a situation where your shalt coins that you like are nice and cheap and they're, down against the bottom ends or ranges, this is one that I'm very, very interested in. One of our site OGs loves this name. And I mean, look at that. That's got me written all over it. Could we take another leg lower here over the next 6 months? Yeah, sure. But, once we start transitioning out, probably, I wouldn't even be surprised that it's sort of Donald Trump getting elected that actually kickstarts the next big bull market. That wouldn't surprise me one bit. And, like I said, I think substitute drama teachers, their days are numbers. I noticed that, like I said, in Europe, you're starting to see the pendulum swing back the other way. They've had enough of this insane communism. So can you do yourself a favor and just be accumulating away here through 2023? That's what I do. That's what I would suggest you do, and that's what I am actually doing. I'd also say, too, with regard to this most recent week, we do have a little bit of and it turns out that there is a bit of a historical precedent for this. If you actually look at the price action of Litecoin, and I've added Litecoin into this conversation this week, I've said this a few times around the site, but it's just not resonating with people, which surprises me. But I remember specifically in 2015, there was a Chinese guy who was running a Litecoin Ponzi, and he took the price of the coin from like $1 or $2 all the way up to $9 about a month ahead of the halving event. everybody blamed the rally on the halving event, but it actually was all to do about this guy's Ponzi. Then when the sort of pre-halving event rally died, his Ponzi just absolutely collapsed. But the point of the matter here is price topped out about a month to a month and a half ahead of that halving event. Then in 2019, I can't remember the specifics around this pump, but in essence, you can see on the chart, there is the halving event. There is the top in Litecoin about a month, month and a half ahead of that event. We know the halving event's coming up here for Litecoin in about a month or so, roughly speaking. So was that just the peak that we just saw there in Litecoin? It could very easily be. I was expecting more of a V top, and actually, frankly, I was expecting a little bit higher in price, but it is interesting how one of our site members, and I was doing a really cool video series with Ben. He and I actually worked together for about a year and a half. Didn't really find it an effective use of my time, and actually, it worked really, really well to let another gentleman basically build a whole business and then end up cannibalizing my business out of it. So that didn't really work very well. And, from what I understand, I think his community is doing really, really well. So, I guess that's a capitalist process. Way to go. All you people over at that other place. But I did find it interesting that Ben all along here has been doing up a very interesting study on Litecoin, and in a weird sort of way, you can go back and watch these old videos. I'm sure they're on YouTube somewhere. But he actually was predicting that probably we would only see one sort of cycle move higher here on Litecoin into its halving event. And in essence, the market did hit his price objective around 100 and change into that halving event, sort of 1 month prior to the halving event pump window. And I was actually asking him to come on a Friday show and just talk everybody through this study of his. I mean, it's a great job, Ben. Perfect. Way to go. So maybe if we're really lucky, he'll come on and chat with us a little bit about what he's seeing with Litecoin. But just from the most simplest perspective, I believe that the market likes to rally into that Litecoin halving event, and then about a month or so ahead of that event, everything stops, and we have to go into sort of consolidation mode. That's what I think's happening here, folks. Yeah, how much time we got left? All right. So finishing off sort of like, why did I include hold on, I don't know where the hell I put it now. Why did I include Litecoin as sort of the chart of the week in the newsletter? Because frankly speaking, I think this is exactly what's driving the market right now. And interestingly enough, I would actually expect that through all of this, Bitcoin's probably just going to tread water. Then Litecoin sort of finishes its halving event. And if we scroll out over time, actually, I think the best place to look at this is on Kraken, believe it or not. And actually, what we can do for fun? You can say I've already drawn all this. I was actually thinking that we were going to get up into this 2.618. I'm very surprised that we stalled out there, but yeah, it is what it is. But if we overlay, maybe let's do it over here. And maybe we'll do the most recent one. Let's overlay BTC USD, and maybe we can do this on Kraken too. I don't know. Let's see. All right, so we said the last halving event was for Litecoin was August of 2019. So 20 July, August. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, somewhere in here. Yeah, right over here. So this is actually what I think Bitcoin's going to do. So I wouldn't be surprised that Bitcoin's kind of just going to be trapped in a range here. Top of the range, bottom of the range. M defines top, W defines bottom, and we just bang, 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 bang. And then once we get through the halving event, and then we actually have to start heading into the seasonal troughing window. This is actually where I expect the market to try and find some sort of bottom. But notice, like last go round, we didn't actually turn until the end of the year. On both, this is Litecoin and Bitcoin. So in essence, this is the image that I think we have to be thinking about here for the next 6-8 months. I love the idea that this is your buying opportunity. Do we get some sort of crazy ass panic dump here? I actually think that this caught the 1% off guard as well, because you even heard those politicians, they were freaking out. Even the banksters, Powell himself was freaking out through all of that crisis. Shouldn't we debate mortgage? Shut the fuck up and give them the money. Give them the money. I mean, if we get that kind of opportunity, wonderful, but I don't think we are. I think there's enough government stimulus, and of course, we're on the other side of the Jupiter-Saturn cross, so interest rates have officially turned the corner. But I guess what I'm just trying to say here is I actually like the idea for something like a Bitcoin that here is the Litecoin pre-halving event. There is the Litecoin halving. You notice that Bitcoin, yes, we made a high. Are we pulling back? The algo itself is actually working a bit of a sell, but we're sort of chopping around up top here. And I think we're going to be stuck in a trading range for Bitcoin for probably the next 6 months or so. September, that's not 6 months. So what's this? July, August, September, that's 3 months. So the next 3 months, I think Bitcoin basically stuck in a range. And I actually think Litecoin's probably going to start crapping out. When we lose this, and probably remember somebody said, well, how about that weekly divergence in Bitcoin? Maybe we have some sort of violent spike down, or maybe this is the spike down. That's what's going to actually confirm the divergence, which sets up this move over here. And I wouldn't be surprised if this move to new lows actually sets up the bull divergence. And of course, this would be acceptable trade location. Then we have bull divergence that starts forming over here. Then you start getting W's in price structure, and you can justify actually going long again. So that's what I think our next 6 to 12 months kind of looks like, folks. Heading back to the newsletter. Oh boy, if I can find it. Where are we here? It's one of these darn things. Nope. There it is. So that's why I think it's important that we keep an eye on Litecoin, because you can see last 2 halving events, and I don't see any reason why this one should be any different. I wouldn't be surprised if we're soft. And then that idea of Bitcoin, could we work our way up? Keep in mind, if we just do 38.2s off of the entire trading range, not this 38.2, but where the hell is it? Should have it on here. Yeah, there. So you can see that. That 38.2, Collins dump chaser zone. And remember, last cycle, we worked our way all the way up to 61.8. I don't think we get up there this time. But could we push our way up here into this 38.2 window here? I don't see why not. But at the same time, too, I think it's going to be like this sort of choppy chop, spike to new highs, run stops, break the new lows, run stops, back and forth, back and forth. And maybe, just eyeballing it, maybe we do something like this kind of idea. That's what I think probably we're going to look like. So over this next 6-12 months, I like the idea that we get some sort of saucer bottom here. So that's sort of the investment perspective. From the trading perspective, maybe we're at like a midpoint consolidation. Terrible place to be a buyer, in my opinion. This is like literally a toss of the coin. They could take it up top here into that 38.2 off the higher time frames. That's what that number is there. They could dump it back down into trendline support, 200 SMA, trade against previous lows, no problem. So like literally a coin toss, either direction. And this smacks of big 1% coming in, want to punish the little kids for thinking that they could actually outsmart the 1%. So they're just going to run stops constantly back and forth until the little fish just give up and they've just lost interest. And that's when, of course, the next big bull market starts. So there's really absolutely nothing trade-wise for me to do here at all. If we do get a dump against these lows, then I can start thinking about long entries. Got a whole bunch of reasons to justify low bottom end of value, horizontal support and resistance, trend line support, moving average support, reload zones off of this particular range, yada, 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 goes on and on and on. I can think about shorts way up top here, especially if we get bear divs and stuff that form off of these daily price charts. But right now, there's nothing. So there's not even really much to even comment about the daily chart. 4-hour chart, you can see that distribution. So there is that recent low. This could be an AB equals CD, which takes us up into trend line resistance. That's that original megaphone, boom, boom, boom. So could we come up and tag this AB equals CD and that trend line all up in this area? Absolutely. But now we're down on like a 4-hour chart. And I had posted this earlier. Remember that Oprah Winfrey reference and, you get a fuck you, you get a fuck you, everybody gets fuck you'd. That's exactly what's going on here, right? So fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you. I mean, just constantly. It's just back and forth, back and forth. How do you make head or tail out of this? I don't really like talking too much to you guys in the public about things like the algo after the fact. Real time, we're not just going to mention it to in the public, but after the fact, I don't have a problem showing you that there was our latest algo sell signal, and it looks like that was the right thing to do, including avoiding, ironically enough, a big fuck you event. So, Mr. Fink tried to screw over little people. Probably on this rally, you had a whole bunch of people that went uber bullish. I can't turn the corner and actually turn bullish on the algo unless it tells me to. And of course, it's based on moving average and stuff. So you're never going to get a signal just off of one candle. It's still pointing bear. So I have no reason whatsoever to be bullish. And I do definitely think that there are FUs to come. More. What I would say, and again, this is another conversation I don't really like having with the public, but just to give you an idea of what I'm thinking here in the short term, we can either do one of two things. As you can see, we've established a trading range through the weekend. So it's basically just a big hurry up and do nothing weekend. I posted this on the site on Wednesday, or I guess Thursday, Friday, sort of saying this is either an inverted head and shoulders. And if that's the case, then we're probably going to come up into reload zones up top here. So if you can trade that for profit, great. 2.618, that's probably a pretty good target there. Or if we put in one high, two highs, it looks like they just busted this out. Really what we want to see is 3 lower highs, and there is the bot entry level on the short side. So really all we've done now is one high, 2 highs, because this high was just taken out. We'd have to see another high, 3 lower highs, then a move through the bot entry level, and then we've got a short signal. So we don't really, ironically enough, even off of the lower time frames, everything is just parked right now as far as I'm concerned. So if you see us up through this 34, 37 on some half decent momentum, like we said, the volume still looking relatively uppy. Nice closing bar up there, then I think we're going to take a shot up into this 31,000 area. And, I could very easily see guys taking shots here. But notice, look how 4.669 would be another one of these FU moves. Very dangerous trading here. If, however, we go and put in 3 lower highs, that would fill me with enough confidence, because then I'd have 3 highs to work with to work stops. Then we probably need to come back down to this 28 and change. And then if these are alt AB equals CDs, well, then we really puke out and maybe we have to come down to 27.5, which is a psychological number. That would make sense. So right now, as far as I'm concerned, this is a total coin toss. It could break either way, no problem whatsoever. Also found it interesting through the holiday weekend. I think that the people that were running the market through the weekend were given express instructions. You better make damn sure you can go and fuck around with the market. You want to run these stops, screw with the kids, then you want to put a top in and short this, fine. Go and do what you want. Fink doesn't care. He's not in the office on the weekends. But after the holiday weekend, you better make damn sure that price is exactly right back to where you took it. We took it out on Friday afternoon. If you haven't seen this before, take a screenshot of this, because this happens all the bloody time in crypto. Remember, it's unregulated. They can manipulate the fuck out of this thing and nobody's going to say boo. Also, try and remember, this is important. Bitcoin does not care what these market manipulators do here. It doesn't care. The only thing that Bitcoin cares about is price has to be above the cost of production. As long as it does, Bitcoin just doesn't give a fuck. So try and remember that. All the people that get screwed around up in here, and especially up in this nonsense, Bitcoin doesn't care. Bitcoin, there's no difference to Bitcoin's story whatsoever up here, because the only thing that matters is that these people that are mining Bitcoin and validating the network and actually giving Bitcoin value, they're way down here. So up here, they're laughing. Oh my God, look at all the money we're making. So even right now, Bitcoin doesn't care. You could see Bitcoin lose what? Almost $10,000 in price here, and Bitcoin still wouldn't care. Please understand that, folks. So in the short term, I think this is Peter Fink just having fun with the market, trying to mess with as many crypto kids as possible, and really trying to break as many hearts as possible. Remember, what is the job of the market? Everybody should remember what the job of the market is. I don't know whether you guys know what the job of the market is. And if you're relatively new to this game, you're not actually going to like what the job of the market is, because it's not friendly. Anyway, I'll leave you to figure that out. Okay, I think I spoke plenty to the newsletter. I mean, I basically covered everything that we covered in there. The only thing I'd want to do here, and I've got about 15 minutes left, is just circle around and see whether there were any questions asked in the AMA document. And of course, we can always dovetail this on into next week. I don't see any questions, so actually we don't have to worry about that. That's good. All right, so let's start putting away a lot of this stuff. Take as much money from, yeah, that's right, TBG. Hey, I gotta admit, he's turning into a pretty savvy market participant now. So I think he listened to me. All right, anything to sort of keep an eye on upcoming here in the next week or so? Yes. A very significant event coming up here. And actually, I even posted it on this chart, this 4-hour chart that I sent out. We have a big June CPI number coming out here on the 12th. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's going to be some volatility injected into the market around that event. And then, of course, you all know how much I love what's his name? Chapa! I don't hear anybody say that anymore, eh? Anyway, we have another FOMC event coming up here, 26th of July. So, as we said there a moment ago, big inflation number coming out on the 12th. So you're probably going to see some volatility injected around that. We'll even put on here June CPI. And we have another big FOMC event coming up here end of July. Now, as I had said there earlier, I still think that the Fed does not want to be perceived as political. So they're going to try and get as many of these interest rates jammed into the system before the end of this year, because 2023 is all about politics. Whether it be the United States, whether it be Canada. And it's interesting how the leader of the party that's in a coalition with substitute drama teachers, he's starting to break. And it makes sense because substitute drama teachers are going to have elections next year anyway. It was the end of their 4 years. They have to have another election. I think the entire country is sick and tired of this bastard. And I hope to God we get him the hell out of there. If anything, the whole reason why you have term limits is because you don't want these damn substitute drama teachers turning into self-styled totalitarian dictators and just running completely roughshod. The whole point of this democratic process is supposed to be checks and balances. And where you live in a democracy or, or a republic, whatever you want to call it. And there's supposed to be sort of a distribution of power. And if you have one person in charge for too long, it ends up sort of undermining the whole damn system. So I hope to God Canada, at the very least, just puts a different bureaucrat in power and we can be done with substitute drama teachers, because this has just been a fucking train wreck with this idiot. The Europeans are also going to be going to the polls in 2024, right? A la Sjord over there and his Dutch compadres. I wouldn't be surprised if you see around the world more and more sort of election windows opening up here through 2024. Honestly, I'm not quite sure. Have we had an election year that has also been a halvening year for Bitcoin? That might be an interesting correlation study. I will say, just on blush, and who knows how the hell this is going to play out, and it's forever away, so nobody really knows what the future holds. But the whole risk market, like literally locked limit up the day Mr. Trump was elected. And Bitcoin ultimately put in its top in 1718 through Trump presidency. That's where it got its CME listing. And the price went absolutely parabolic into that event. I think that if Mr. Trump is reelected and we get a little bit of sort of balance here and the socialists are sort of put back in the box to a certain degree, I think crypto and Bitcoin could have a very, very good cycle coming up here. So as one site participant has suggested, 2023, you better get your skirt together and do it. Don't make excuses, because the coming bull is coming. But it's not here now. So you've got a good 6-8 months to get your act together, maybe even over the course of the coming year. But once we're on the other side of that halvening event, once we're heading into the elections in earnest, I think actually the buying opportunity will be behind us. So, just understand that message, folks, please. Okay, we've got, I don't know, 10 minutes left here. I can quickly surf through the questions asked on the YouTube channel. Thank you very much, MM. Everybody, if you could kindly give me some positive karmic waves, waves of karma to send to Liam. And actually, it was interesting because we didn't really do a big sort of public request for karmic input on Thursday for Liam, and Liam had a pretty tough Thursday. We were able to get through it, and Dad was also too pretty depressed. I've been pretty depressed recently as well. So, we'll see how it goes. But if all of you could just take a moment, if you got some value out of this, hey, there's like 40, 50 of you watching. If just even one or two of you just pause and just ask God to just smile on Liam. Maybe just, God, could you just give him a little pat? Just give him a little brush, just to make him feel a little bit better about being alive. Man, it makes a world of difference. And look at that. I love when I do that. Whenever I talk to Spirit and Spirit likes what I said, I don't know whether you can see that, but all of the hairs on my arm all stand straight up. So clearly Spirit's listening to me. But live this very challenging life. I'm proud of myself for not giving up on Liam. I tell you, it's not easy. Liam will never say thank you on his own. Never. It just doesn't exist. It's impossible for him. Love him with all my heart, and I'm not going to abandon him. And there's no way I can leave him. If anything, that's half the reason why I'm still in this stupid substitute drama teacher country. Because I'll tell you, if I didn't have Liam, there's no fucking way I'd be in this idiot fucking shithole of a country right now. I've told you, Canada is a short, and I was absolutely 100% correct about that. Canada is a shithole. There you go. I'm gonna get fucking de-platformed for saying that. This is a nightmare living in this fucking. There's no doctors here. I'm still suffering from getting my goddamn booster shots. I still can't lift my arm above my head, and you can't find a doctor to visit here. And whatever doctors you can say, they're like, oh, here's a prescription. Yeah, just get the hell out of my face, kind of thing. I wouldn't be living in this country. This country sucks horse cocks right now, and it will for the next 10 years. I'm sorry, fellow Canadians, but that's reality. These stupid assholes have fucked this country up royally. But anyway, that's just the way that it is. So the point here is that I have to endure this. I have to just, have a stiff upper lip. I have to put a smile on my face. This beautiful human that I'm directly responsible for bringing into this world. Got to somehow make it that at least, he feels as though there's somebody out there in the world that actually cares and that loves him. I mean, he doesn't get any love in the institutional setting that he's in. So this is not an easy life by any means. It's not easy. So I ask all of you if you could just have like a moment just to ask God to smile on Liam, maybe even just smile a little bit on Brian. Just say, you know what? Just take it easy, man. Slow and steady wins the race, and you're doing the right thing. I believe I am, and I believe I'm a good human for sticking it out with my son. So all your best wishes are muchly appreciated. Thank you very much in advance. Now, were there any questions that you guys have? I got basically about maybe 3 or 4 or 5 minutes left here. DMAC wants me to go to Montenegro. I could hang out with Do Kwon. But actually, you think it's safer than El Salvador. Hey, you're not impressed with El Salvador. I don't know. TBG's all excited about this El Salvador place. I'm not quite sure why. The only problem is that man, I'm gonna get a fucking Colombian necktie if I go down there. Any of you ever heard of a Colombian necktie? Eddie says you are doing the right thing, Brian. Well, I appreciate it. Thank you, man. All right. Take as much money from as many people. That's right. Well, Richard now knows what the market's job is to do. Oh, and Cheryl knows it too. That's good. Thank you for the best wishes with regard to Liam there, show. Appreciate it. Thank you, Josh. PMA for the win. Oh, thank you, Constantine. Yeah, I'm glad that you got some value out of all this. All right. Well, not hearing any questions. So I think why don't we just what's this? Sure, better Montenegro Balkans. Okay. Soon 10x bread. Yeah. Well, that's what. Oh, okay. So where's the question? What was that, Chris? Oh, okay. Somebody asked a question. Where is that? Is that at the top? All right. B says, greetings from Canada. Oh, yeah. I have a moose knuckle. More dangerous to humans than bears. Yeah, I imagine. We were talking about moose earlier. There you go. TBG's buying some 1 inch. All right. Good to hear. Crypto not happy. You can talk. No cross latently. Lately. No cross lately. Okay. Bread. Yeah, well, and since we haven't had a signal recently, I am allowed to talk about bread. And as I had said to you earlier, in fact, you guys will all get this in the newsletter, which I think is relatively okay. I'm sure business partners would prefer I not even show you this in the newsletter. But as just an instant little brief, maybe once a week as a nice little teaser for you. Although it doesn't look like I have the. Yeah, I thought about going down to Chicago. DMAX says bye Badger. All right, so there you go. I mean, it looks like we don't have a shortage of names. I mean, are these assets at the bottom end of trading ranges? I mean, yeah, they are. So, I mean, that's the great part about this is that there are a lot of names that we can go shopping, like especially if it's like shitcoins. I love this CVX. I mean, geez, look at that chart. Eh? Oh God, that's incredible. And this, if anything, this is such a good example. Opportunity is now here, right? Or is opportunity nowhere? Probably everybody in the public looks at this as opportunity is nowhere. You can see the little old lady list that I have. So I have, I'm building my list out. Yeah, I would agree with that. So I finished off Rush's question here. I was thinking about going to Chicago, but didn't really hear a lot of feedback from people that they wanted to join us. We had like maybe about a half a dozen people that were like, "Hey, I'll go." But I don't know whether that's enough to really do like an official meetup. So also too, TRI, we're actually right in the middle of a major restructuring. How ironic. So we were supposed to have the restructuring done by the first of the month, and it still hasn't been done. So I think I really need to concentrate and work with these accountants to get this crap done. And it means like harassing them every fucking day. And I don't think me just hopping on a plane and heading across the country right now is such a good idea. So also too, the site itself is under intense redevelopment or development. if you will. It should be a lot of fun. Maybe one of these days we can bring sort of the site, I don't know, the site development coordinator. Is that what we call you, Josh? I'm not quite sure, but he's working feverishly on sort of formatting. I don't know what the right word is. The site. So there's all that on the go. Also, too, I didn't know whether it was really a good idea to be all sort of, hey, we're having a great old time, when I think that crypto environment is kind of sketchy right now. The good part about it is Zug, who's sort of our quarterback, he was going to be the guy in Chicago that we were all going to go visit together. And we were thinking about jumping out of airplanes with him and stuff like that. I mean, he does that for a living. So it's certainly like not like that. Those opportunities can't present themselves in the future again. So I think I decided that there was just too much on the go to justify doing a Chicago trip. And we just didn't have enough. Like if we had like 10, 20 people that came out and said, yeah, I totally want to get together, let's party in Chicago, then it would have been like, okay, cool, this is a no-brainer. But we just didn't hear the feedback. So then the second part of this, and this is what Rush is more interested in, is maybe what would be a better idea is that we have for quite a while been talking about, I used to be a day trader. I used to be a funded prop trader, all that nonsense. And I do have my own personal accounts. Actually, I even have a futures trading account that's just sitting there in cash. And I've just been like, well, I want to demonstrate to everybody how to do this, what it is that I would ask you to do. And then I will show you in person how to put all this together in what we call like a boot camp, right? Where we get together for a couple of weeks, and instead of me barking to you through the internet, we're actually in person, all in one room, all working together, and we can all work together to sort of find setups and trade them in a live environment, what we call a boot camp. And it would be basically like the formal education would just be simply teaching people how to set up these kind of trading plans and all the pre-market checklists and different trading plans that you have. How do you manage this on a daily basis, etc. And I think it's going to be perfectly honest with you, Rush, it's going to be exactly the same sentiment as before. We had one gentleman, mind you, I haven't seen these guys on the site. And actually, Chris used to live over in Europe with one of these gentlemen. And we were thinking about, they're on Mallorca right now. And we were thinking about doing a sort of boot camp in Mallorca. We were thinking about doing Portugal. And then sadly, the Portuguese, they've kind of gotten rid of a lot of their sort of crypto friendly kind of environment. So the incentive for us to do Portugal right now is waning. The boys are over there on Mallorca, and one of the guys, Juju, he actually wanted to put together like sort of like an ashram because he's really big on the yoga and all that spirituality and all that. And he was asking whether I could maybe come and just run a trading boot camp, but also sort of like a introduction to trading live program this fall on Mallorca. So I guess the first question is, Chris, are you planning on being back in Mallorca this fall? All right. All right. So the point with regard to that is theoretically we should still have Juju, Andrea, and Chris there on Mallorca. Worst case scenario, Rush, if you just want to hop on a plane, I'm sure they could find you an Airbnb, and the four of you could bum around the island for a week or two. If I hear enough demand, and I guess Rush would be one person, and I know Adam out of California, he would love to do the boot camp. If I can find, let's say, another I don't know, let's make it 10 people. So if I can find another 8 people who would actually be paying customers and do this in seriousness, then I can justify the expense to head over to Mallorca and work for a week or two with you guys in person. Then I'm more than happy to consider this. So the question ultimately is, do we go back and harass French lady to rent out her place outside of Porto, Portugal? Do we try and do this in Mallorca? Do we maybe think of doing this in Spain? I know Zug, he has a couple ideas in rural France that he would be interested in. But at the end of the day, the most important thing, and anybody listening to this broadcast that would be interested in, the most important thing is, can we get enough people that would be interested in doing this for me to justify the expense of just basically dropping everything and coming over to Europe, and of course having to spend all that money to do all this. So short answer for you is, yeah, I'd be more than happy to do this. I'll hop on a plane tomorrow, under the understanding that there are, I would say, the ideal number would be 12, but we've got Chris and Andrea and Juju already there. So it would just really be a question of, can we put together like maybe 10 people? And can we go and rent out, like Adam, when we were in Portugal, he actually found just the coolest Airbnb, almost like chateau, that we rented out, and that was a lot of fun in Oliveira do Hospital. So maybe we do something along those lines. So the biggest thing, and Rush, it almost sounds to me like you are volunteering to quarterback this idea, which is great of you. I mean, thank you so much for volunteering. You are just awesome. Put together a nice little Google one-pager, and over the next 3 or 4 months, let's just mention this on a weekly basis, and let's fill up the reservation list. And if we can put together a dozen people that are interested in doing the Airbnb and the boot camp program, and just basically sit and listen to Brian lecture you as to what all the stuff you have to have in place. And keep in mind, I can easily fill up a week or two of intense activity for you to work on. Then yeah, let's do it. Totally down for it. Okay, it's now past the top of the hour, so I think we should probably leave it at that. Hope you guys got some value out of this. Hit the like button, subscribe, ring the notification bell. It helps us out immensely. Maybe consider coming on over and taking advantage of our 30-day trial, so you can be a part of the after parties Monday to Friday, and come in and hang out with the crew. In the Discord room, you can see I've got lots of PMs already on the go here. And, we've got fun rooms, especially our lounge, which is sort of a great way for new people to sort of get up to speed with how we operate at TRI and all our interactions. You're more than welcome to come on over and participate. We'd love to have you on board. All right, I think I'll leave it at that. PMA for the win. Hopefully you got some value out of this. All the best. Hugs and kisses. The only thing left for Brian to say at this point is, wish me luck with Liam, and bye for now.